Hey there, Knicks fans. How you doing? It's your boy, Jonathan Macri, with you for another episode of the Knicks Film School Podcast. And I'm joined by, I don't know, what funny way can I introduce this person? I'm joined by someone I haven't really been talking to a lot over the last month. I feel like we had a robust text chat going throughout the season into the beginning of the off season, and then not through the fault of this person, but just all of us. It's been crickets the last month. So Fred Katz, what have you been doing with your life?
Absolutely nothing. Just sitting around waiting for news on the Trevor Keels contract. You want to hear something crazy?
I want to. Yes, I do want to hear something crazy.
Wild. You want to hear the great? It's so funny. I don't think it's probably happened before, but in my reporting career, I've never been aware of a situation where every single person in the industry collectively dropped the ball to this level. So this is myself included, obviously. So we're recording this on Thursday. It was yesterday. Noon. Yeah, it was yesterday that Keith Smith reported that Trevor Keels had re-signed with the Knicks on a 2-way contract.
Yes.
Accurate report from Keith. He was 100% correct. So I go to hit it up to confirm. And the person who I confirm with sees the details in the league office of the contract. It's a 2-way contract. And I wanted to see if it was a 1-year or 2-year deal. So I could report it was a 1-year deal. And he says, this was signed July 8th. And it's July 19th. And just like nobody knew that. Well,
didn't you originally report that they extended the qualifying offer for the 2-way, correct?
Correct. And that was what? That was like, June 30th or something. Yeah. But he signed it on July 8th. Sat there, signed with the Knicks for 11 days, unless there was an error on this. And nobody got it. And then I guess, somebody alerted Keith Smith to it. And Keith reported it, and he was correct, and he got the report. And then, everybody else was able to follow up and get confirmation. But yeah, it was like, normally it's like two sides find out. And before it's like the name is on the signature, like they have the verbal agreement, some reporter ends up getting it. Obviously, usually either Woj or Shams or Haynes. And
I think Trevor Keels might be a little beneath.
Yes, Woj, for sure.
Level.
Trevor Keels is absolutely not beneath me. Like I reported extending the qualifying offer to Trevor Keels. That's less of a big deal than Trevor Keels actually signing a contract.
Did you have the top-in was Exhibit 10, or was that Begley? Or was that, I don't know if maybe
I had the top-in was Exhibit 10.
You had that too. That was a good one. Yeah. Well, it's funny because
we're real nerds if Jacob Toppin being on an Exhibit 10 was a good one.
You want to talk about real nerds when I forget which news hit first, the Nathan Knight news. By the way, I hope you're prepared to talk 45 minutes about Nathan. Did I get his first name right? Is it Nathan Knight?
Nathan Knight. It's a great name, by the way. That's a fantastic name.
Oh, it's a wonderful name.
Generally, I like alliterative names that don't start with hard consonants. And like Marshall Mathers, that's a great name. That's like the one thing. That's the one thing that Eminem's mom, right? It's the one thing that Eminem's mom did really well for him. That's a great name.
Eminem's mom, if you're listening to this, that is not an opinion shared by the Knicks Film School Podcast. That is an opinion of Fred Katz, just to be clear.
She had Munchausen's by proxy. She made him sick when he was a kid. She would convince him he was sick and made him sick.
Everybody makes mistakes, Fred. I'm sure she did a lot of other lovely things. Anyway, Marshall Mathers, great name. I don't know how the fuck we got onto this.
Yeah, well, Nathan Knight. Oh, Nathan Knight. Yeah. Like that's a cool name. Like that's just like a good job, Mr. and Mrs. Knight. Like I love that. Like I'm not like, oh, a crazy name. I love that ironically. I'm like, Nathan Knight is. Because the thing is that Nathan in general is not an amazing name, but that's a name that's greater, the what is it? The whole is greater than the sum of its parts.
Yeah.
It's a great name. Knight is a normal last name. Nathan is just kind of run of the mill name, and you put it together and you're like, damn, good job.
Nathan Knight is actually, that's a pretty good superhero alias.
100%. Well, a lot of you get a lot of
Nathan Knight. Yeah.
Nathan Knight, Peter Parker. You get a lot of a lot of the alliteration there.
Well, whether it was Nathan Knight or the Keels news that hit first yesterday, or hit whichever one hit second, my first thought that popped into my head was, what does this mean for Dwayne Washington Jr.? Because they had, as you reported, they extended him the qualifying offer. So now I guess Dwayne Washington Jr. is not getting a two-way spot.
No,
no, he's not.
I actually have been meaning to text someone just to make sure that they officially pulled the qualifying offer to Dwayne Washington Jr. I
wouldn't they have to? Do you want to talk about nerdery? What happens if they don't? But he can't sign.
Technically, he can.
And what happens if he signs it?
If he signs the qualifying offer, then he comes back on a two-way. And the Knicks then immediately have to release one of their two-way guys.
Can they release him?
They can release him.
Okay.
But they have to pay him out on the two-way. So technically they may not have rescinded it yet, but it wouldn't make any sense for them not to, because they have
don't count against the cap.
Two-ways don't count against the cap.
So if they wanted to do solid by him, they could technically just give him, I don't know how much a two-way is for now. I know it's for more money, but like that would be an interesting little.
Yeah, something. I guess if they wanted to do solid by him, if they really liked him, they could be like, if you don't get signed, pick up the qualifying offer and we'll give you, I forget how much money it is if you just get released immediately, but it's something.
Listen, anytime we could spend some James Dolan's money. What?
I think it's 75K. I think it's the same amount as an Exhibit 10. I think.
Okay. Listen, 75K is not nothing. I'm sure to Dwayne Washington Jr. it's not nothing. This is exactly
not to me.
No, not to me either.
I'll take 75K.
Any listeners out there, if you would like to fund Fred Katz for, I don't know what you want Fred Katz to do for 75K, come up with something creative, and then Fred Katz will let you know if he'll do it for 75K. This is clearly what people came here to talk about. We had a whole rundown, which we'll get to the stuff on the rundown that Andrew proposed yesterday, but I want to start with some fresh reporting that you, Fred Katz, had this morning for The Athletic. You dropped a piece because if you are someone that is in any way, shape, or form related to the Knicks or covering the Knicks or writing about the Knicks or talking about the Knicks, you had to weigh in on the comments of a player who has nothing to do with the Knicks as of right now, but as you so eloquently wrote, there is much speculation as to whether or not he could have something to do with the Knicks in the future. So I'm just going to put it on a tee for you. You wrote about basically like Joel Embiid said this stuff, and what does it mean? What does it mean for the Knicks in your estimation?
I mean, my story was basically, I don't know what it means. Joel.
You're really selling yourself
here. Yeah. Please go. You'll learn so much. The last thing that I wanted to do is say, some big guy made a cryptic comment about how he wants to win a championship in Philly or quote anywhere else, and then went on to talk about how badly he wants to win a championship. And the last thing I want to do is take those comments and sensationalize them like crazy. And I don't think I did that in the story.
You did not.
I was told that I have not read the comments, because sometimes it's good not to read the comments, because you just get eviscerated in internet comments.
Shame on you. I read every comment to every podcast and YouTube video. I do. Everyone. I actually print many of them out and post them on my refrigerator.
Well, my brother recently... Why does my name say Fred Katz of The Athletic now?
Because that's your name. That's why. Because that's your name.
Nobody knows.
Hold on. Can you explain what happened?
Yeah, go ahead. Because
I was waiting for someone to acknowledge it.
I jumped on and saw it right away.
I jumped on here and I see Fred Katz come up with a box, and in the box it says GMAC at Andrew J. Claudio _. And I'm like, okay, obviously someone decided that this would be this way. So I didn't say anything. And now Andrew has changed it and Fred has gone to pieces. Let's continue.
Yeah, well, it asks for your name. You got to have for the people who just listen and don't watch. It asks for your name. You got to put your name on the bottom. So
that's not your name,
but it's a name.
Okay.
Oh, you actually typed that in?
Yeah. See, it doesn't. This also goes to.
It just says name. It just says name. It could be any name. I could.
Why did you type in Nathan Seal.
I could Seal. I could put
Shakira. Yes.
Who's Shakira dating now?
Jimmy Butler.
Jimmy Butler.
No, she's not.
Yeah.
That's the gossip mill.
Yeah.
This How old is Shakira?
Oh, go ahead.
In her 40s, I think.
Good for Jimmy. Good for Shakira. That's a good job by both of them.
Shakira.
I would say it's a great job by both of them.
Shakira.
Yeah.
46 years old.
Shakira's getting $20 cups of coffee. She's set. She can afford it. She's very successful.
Unlimited Mick
Ultra. Good. Yeah. Yeah, no, good from both. That's good gossip. That's a good couple.
Again, exactly what people tuned into this podcast.
Thank you. This is the thing people came for. This goes to a thing sometimes where John will see things on the screen that could potentially be, why are we doing that? Like there was one time a Patreon episode, Fred, where my camera somehow turned off midway through, and because we were on Zoom, and when you minimize the Zoom, you only see the other person, and he just didn't say anything. So for like half the pod. He was doing the pod with a blank screen. And it was like, oh, I guess Andrew wanted his camera off rather than stopping when it turned off. Hey, Andrew, why'd your camera turn off? Oh, I can stop it. And then I appreciate it because it gives me the freedom to do stuff. But it also sometimes you could have stopped this. Like if your mic wasn't on, right? He'd be like, oh, I guess Fred just doesn't want his microphone on. Okay.
Well, that was the case with an early episode of Benji where Benji's mic was not on. And I was like, he's probably fine.
Yeah, this is probably the best he can do. He has a microphone. I don't hear it, but the webcam should be fine. So yes, Fred Katz of The Athletic I think the world should know that Andrew and I were on the phone yesterday, just like shooting the shit about Immaculate Grid. And Andrew at one point says to me, the reason that I and John are such good partners is because John has the vision and he proposes things to me. And I'm like, yeah, John, that's not possible. But we can try to find a version. We can try to find a version of this. There's an idea man, and then there's an execution man. So it's a great idea.
We're a great pair because I propose shitty ideas and he tells me no.
It's a good. You'll sometimes.
You know what, Fred? You're a great writer because you submit all kinds of stuff to your editors, and they're like, "This is fucking ass."
I Bermaned this podcast just now. Yes, that is Bermaning a podcast, just blowing the whole thing.
If I can add context, what I said was like, John is the idea guy. He'll be like, "Hey, we should do this more often," and then I'd be like, "Hey, that's a good idea. Let me figure out the best way to execute it that makes the most sense." So listen, the blind squirrel finds an acorn every now and then. You have a good idea every once in a while. And like more Fred Katz next season. Great idea. I'm figuring out a way to execute it for next year.
At this point, I'm about to go call up Berman and see if he can come replace you two yahoos.
Yes. Well, you want to do a Florida man, really?
Honestly, John, if you could do that, you should do that. I would listen. I wouldn't let that podcast go 1 minute before I started listening to it. I would listen. Just you and Berman. Are you kidding me? That sounds amazing. Berman is so captivating and
he
so
turned
funny.
The corner at some point, maybe towards the end of the season, maybe after the season, where he was a wrestling heel while he was a reporter, and then he took another step over the course of this year, his first year, not reporting on the team. And I think he's taken another step where he's just gone full, I don't know what, something.
Dude, the players still talk about Berman all the time.
That's great.
All the time. Like Mitchell Robinson brings up Berman all the time. Like Mitchell Robinson finding out this year that Berman has been married for a long time and has a family was incredible. He started screaming, Berman got a girl? Berman got a girl? He talks about him all the time, unprompted. He's always the one bringing it up. You know who talks about him?
Who?
Isaiah Hartenstein.
Oh my God. Like, he wasn't even here last year.
Exactly. I was like, Hartenstein brought him up once. He made like a comment about Berman. I was like, Berman never even covered you. He's like, yeah, but everybody knows. I've heard all the stories. You know, like that is a man with a legacy. Someone's got to write a Berman book. Someone's got to write.
Berman
I don't mean Berman.
Great movie title, by the way. Berman Got a Girl.
It was great. It was because Berman is, I've never met Berman's wife, but everybody talks about how wonderful she is, how she's just like the greatest. I have met his son. His son is wonderful. He's such a great guy.
I'm sure they're lovely people. We love Berman. Berman's a great guy.
Berman's hilarious. It's a great family.
He's Berman.
And so hearing Mitch say that was just Berman got a girl. Berman got a girl. Like, it's amazing.
I think Mitchell Robinson should write the Mark Berman book.
It
could be a children's book.
Berman got a girl. Yeah.
I have said to Mitch, like when Berman was on the beat, that like a Berman and Mitch podcast would be that's the best player journalist podcast. Like, you know, you got CJ McCollum doing one of them, and you got like Austin Rivers has one, right? And KD has one, and Draymond has one. Mm-hmm. If Berman and Mitch did a podcast together, that's JJ's podcast was a player podcast at some point when he was a player. I mean, that's obviously like the best player podcast ever, but like
easily
Berman and Mitch. Ooh, that I think that would take the cake if it ever happened. Mitch was not down, nor was Berman.
I would love to, if I would pay a not insignificant sum of money to see the face of a certain someone, I'm not going to say his name out loud, upon hearing about, hey, guess who just decided to start a podcast with Mark Berman, and they're going to record live once a week for the foreseeable future.
Mitch loved Berman.
Of course he did.
Mitch clearly thought Berman was hilarious. That's why he always had so much fun with him. Like Mitch's fun with Berman was always very good natured. He that's why he's always asking about him. He's always asking about him.
There should be a reunion of sorts when the Knicks travel to Florida, to Miami next year. Okay, we've gone far foul. Let's bring it back. Andrew, everything okay now with the names? We're good. Okay,
everything's fine. I changed it without mentioning anything, and then Fred led us down this rabbit hole,
as he often does.
By the way, speaking of, my only comment to the Berman side of things, you said you wanted him to replace both of us. I would love to see him produce and edit a podcast for you, Jonathan Macri, and see how that finished product comes out.
That would go swimmingly. Okay, where were we?
Let's talk about Joel Embiid.
Yes, you didn't want to sensationalize.
Yeah, I didn't want to sensationalize just like an offhand comment, but it's obviously newsworthy when he opens up that door. So I kind of just wanted to use Embiid's comments as an opportunity to jump off, and maybe we should read the comment in case somebody missed it, because I absolutely positively do not expect any NBA fan, even someone who's a total diehard, to know every single quote that any player says at the end of July. So Embiid said this.
You got it up? Okay.
Yeah, I got it up. Embiid said this in an interview with Maverick Carter, who's LeBron's longtime business manager, very successful, and does the uninterrupted. Runs Uninterrupted, the podcast series, and he was interviewing Embiid, and Embiid said, I just want to win a championship, whatever it takes. I don't know where that's going to be, whether it's in Philly or anywhere else. And that part was the one that kind of picked up the steam, whether it's in Philly or anywhere else. And he continued, I just want to have a chance to accomplish that. I want to see what it feels like to win that first one and then think about that next one. It's not easy, but it takes more than one or two or three guys. You've got to have good people around you, and myself, every single day I work hard to be the best at the best level so I can produce and make it happen. And to me, the actual notable stuff there was not okay, Joel Embiid is asking out. I make it very clear in the story. Joel Embiid asking out is many, 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 many steps down the line. And we may never get there because I do know Embiid has constantly told people who are close to him over the years that he really values the one team legacy thing. So I am not, and I at least attempted to make it very clear. I don't think this is happening tomorrow at all. I don't think it's happening the day after tomorrow at all. The reason I think it's notable is because it does make me wonder, and I think it's reasonable to wonder, okay, but what if this James Harden situation screws up everything and he doesn't feel like he has any more than one or two guys? What if James Harden really does force his way to the Clippers and they get back, I don't know, Norman Powell and Marcus Morris and a 2028 first, which they're able to swing somewhere else for a role player? What if or maybe the 28 and the 2030
They
first?
have both,
swing those
swap
for role players. Yeah, get a swap. But like Joel Embiid doesn't care about a 2029 swap. I promise you that. He's not like, oh, maybe we'll win the championship so we get the swap. And what happens if they fall from 3rd to 7th in the East because they just don't have that roster? Then you start to wonder, okay, and I'm not reporting that the Knicks are specifically waiting on Joel Embiid. They are not waiting on specifically only Joel Embiid. What they're waiting on is the right star. And I wanted to use this as an opportunity to put a greater context around the Knicks star hunting, which is, I think we speak a little too generically sometimes about the Knicks star hunting, because what it used to be was the Knicks are looking for their first star. The Knicks are looking for a star. They want to go out. They want to get a star. If there was a star, right? Any star who's a real
star, we'll roll out the red carpet for you. Yes, come aboard.
Right. And it used to be that. And I don't think it's that anymore. And by the way, that's good.
Yeah.
Because the reason that it's not that, and it's smart that it's not that, the reason that it's not that is because they think they already have their first star. And I agree with them that they have Jalen Brunson. And they have to ask, okay, how does this guy fit with Jalen Brunson? And they notice. They have to ask, how does this guy fit with Jalen Brunson? And if the answer is not so well, then you can't give up everything for that guy. And that's why they've, to my knowledge, never come close on Zach LaVine. They've talked about Zach LaVine, but the Knicks are a team where...
Sorry, for anybody who may have not read your story, I want to note that is some additional fresh reporting courtesy of you, which you say, like, they've talked about LaVine, but you are very clear, just to repeat what you said a minute ago, not close, because the Bulls want, what was the word you used? They want a lot, right?
They want a ton. I've spoken to various teams who have been in contact with the Bulls about what the Bulls' priorities are on LaVine. And it's basically like, yeah, they're not going to hang up when you call about LaVine, but they want, the moon and the stars for LaVine. And that's why to my knowledge, I don't know any team that's gotten close. There might be a team that's gotten close to their asking price, but I don't know of that team. And I do know that team is not the Knicks, if it exists. They're not giving up a ton for Zach LaVine. The reason we used to hear all the Damian Lillard to the Knicks stuff all the time. But the reason why we don't hear it now is because Jalen Brunson is there. And if Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum couldn't make it work defensively, then Damian Lillard and Jalen Brunson are not going to make it work defensively. Joel Embiid, if you say you don't think the Knicks should give up 4 unprotected firsts and 3 unprotected first round swaps and 4 protected picks from other teams and RJ Barrett and Evan Fournier to make the money work, like, if you say, no, that's too much, Joel Embiid is too injury prone, and I'm too worried about how he's going to age. He's already 29. I'm too worried about how he's going to age. I'm too worried about his body breaking down in the playoffs. It concerns me that he's never been past the second round and that he's had playoff series where it's not like he's been bad in the playoffs, but he also hasn't played like, Jokic, where he takes his game to another level. If you say that and you say that concerns me, I get it. That's fine. He's not a flawless star, but he is the right star in terms of He can run pick and roll with RJ Barrett. He can run pick and roll with Emmanuel Quickly. He can obviously run pick and roll with Jalen Brunson. He can dominate the low post. He can be a one-man defense when he's at his absolute best, which he isn't always at his absolute best. But when he is at his absolute best, he is essentially as good as anybody at manning the paint, controlling a defense. And also, like, the crazy thing about Embiid is, like, there are some bigs who are amazing rim protectors who will make sure that you don't get to the rim. And that's great. That's awesome. Mitchell Robinson's that. It's a fantastic trait. Embiid actually limits the amount of threes that you get too when he's on the floor. You look at the on-offs and it's like, and you can see why. He's so long and he's so big. It's just tough to get. It's tough to get good threes, and he'll position himself in that way. Like Rudy Gobert is a similar sort of thing. Like, he can really turn you into a one-man defense. He can really become a one-man defense. He is the perfect fit and a great player, whereas Karl Anthony Towns is a great player. I don't think he's the perfect fit for basketball reasons. And, you know, I have in that story as well that the Knicks at no point have expressed any interest in Towns, which I was actually surprised to learn when I learned it and was able to confirm all that. So, yeah, I mean, I wanted to paint it around like they are going for the right star and they are trying to be patient right now. And they are not going to give up everything for just some dude who made an all-star team. And that's it.
I want to come back to a few things that you just said. But before I get to any of that, I want to mention a name that you did not mention. And it's someone that when we were shooting shit I think around probably before the trade deadline, maybe back in January, you were like, you know, might be saying this, but you're like, you know, it'd be perfect fit on the Knicks as currently constructed, Paul George. And then sure enough, fast forward to how many months it was later, 5-6 months later, and guess whose name comes up? Do you think if they had their druthers, if the price came down on, the price is not going to come down on George. The Clippers clearly don't want to do this, but like, do you think that he would be at the top of their imperfect options list, putting aside everything you just said, which is like, they're waiting for the right guy. I'm wondering, does George occupy this like netherworld between the Levines, Hardens, Lillards, Katz, and, you know, it's Beals, like those guys, because he's such a perfect basketball fit, but contract, age, et cetera, et cetera. So what's your thought on that?
Yeah, I know there have been some reports about how the Knicks were concerned about his medicals and they were concerned about his injury history. And that was something that came up. Who reported that? It was somebody good and reliable. Who reported that? Was it Begley? I think it was both Begley and Scotto both reported that. And they're both.
Oh yeah. Scotto had some on that. Yeah.
Yeah. Scotto definitely reported that. And he's a really good reporter. And
yes. For Hoopside, go follow him.
Yeah, no, he's awesome. So, and he has the funniest voice.
Dude, I ran into Scotto on the street sometimes because he lives around the block from me.
Yeah, he's the best. He's like the best guy. He's like the best guy. He's like the friendliest, most outgoing, nicest guy ever. And he literally talks like he's doing an offensive impression of an Italian from Brooklyn. Like, talks like this. And it is.
It's not an act. It's actually real.
It is truly amazing. But I know Scotto reported that stuff about, Paul George and the injury stuff. The reason I didn't include Paul George is because I just really don't think the Clippers are interested in trading him. I really don't. Everything that I continue to hear is that the Clippers would like to get James Harden. James Harden would like to go to the Clippers, and the Clippers want to do this to add to Kawhi and PG because they think that he would be a really good basketball addition. And then you have Kawhi and you have PG and you have the rest of the guys, and you have, whoever you didn't trade for Harden, and you have Russ, and you have Zubats, and you got yourself a team. I just didn't think it was worth mentioning.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know. I honestly don't know where the Knicks would be on his where he would be on the Knicks list of imperfect guys. I can say personally on mine, he'd be number one.
Yeah, mine too.
But I don't know where he'd be on the Knicks because I don't even know if he's like really on the list at this point. in a way that I don't mean for Cat. Like I reported, they've never expressed interest in Cat. But like Cat's on the list just because we're like, oh, CAA connections, and the whole league just kind of assumes that Cat is on the list.
They've been assuming that for 3 years.
Exactly, which is why I thought it was noteworthy to report that they haven't actually done that. In spite of everyone being like Cat's at CAA, they have not done that. And Minnesota is asking for the world for Cat as well. So Minnesota is absolutely not trying to trade Cat. Like, absolutely not.
And
they're not.
And they don't need to.
But they're not trying to trade him.
They don't need to this year. They don't. I don't want to get too deep into Minnesota's finances, but like they have time to take care of their business, before the summer, which leads into my first point about this and why I think everything you said. I mean, obviously it's spot on, but like logically it makes sense because the Knicks don't. The next summer is not the Brunson extension summer. It is not the the Julius extension summer. I guess it could be, right? It could be the extension summer for both of those.
It's the extensions. The extension,
it's
but it's not the free agency summer.
No, it is not the free agency. It is not the summer they can opt out. So we'll see what happens with those. But they get to have those two guys on the books for regardless of what you think about Julius Randle as a player. What I think we could all agree is a modest salary for that level of production. Certainly Brunson as well for one more year. So like, and Fournier or whatever they do with Fournier, like that comes off the books. You figure quickly that number has been, I think floated about as like they would be comfortable in something in the 18 to 20 range. I guess while I bring it up, do you have any thoughts on if that gets done? But it won't get done until October, but do you have any thoughts on if it gets done before the season?
Yeah, I don't think there's a reason it's not getting done for a while. And it's because if something pops up, they want the flexibility to be able to move him. And if they extend him, he's a lot more difficult to trade. This is a guess. This is not me reporting it will happen. To be
aggregators, get your I was supposed to get your typewriters out.
This is an informed guess. I would say if he is still, so the deadline to extend quickly is the day before the regular season starts. It's like October, whatever. I forget the exact date. My guess is that if Quickly is still on the Knicks in October, and I think the most likely scenario is that he's still on the Knicks, they extend him. Also, for what it's worth, I think next summer could very well be the Jalen Brunson extension summer. Like, let's say Jalen Brunson comes out and has at least as good of a year as he did last year. Okay?
But that contract starts at 30. Was it 37? 38? That could start at. I'll look it up if you want. But anyway, keep going.
But let's say Jalen Brunson comes out this upcoming season and has as good of a season as he did last year. Let's say, because he's improved literally every year of his career and he's only 26. Or did he just turn 27?
He's about to.
He's going to be 27 at the start of the season.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he could still be in his age of improvement. What if he comes out and I've written, like, there are important people with the Knicks who are absolutely not 99% convinced, like 100% convinced, insistent that we have not seen the best of Jalen Brunson. Like, points to see those 30 a game he averaged against Miami with a really good defense, an unbelievably well-coached team that was helping off of every shooter imaginable, giving him no space, and he was still averaging like 30 a game on 50% shooting. You see that?
Yep.
That's going to be a thing. Like, they are convinced that like he has like another leap in him. Let's say those people are right. Let's say those people are partially right. And he's consequentially better, but it's not like he's like, a second team All NBA guy. He's in the conversation for third team All NBA again, or maybe he makes third team All NBA. When he's extension eligible, he's a year away. You have got to be thinking at that point, okay, he's a year away. This is 2024. He is unquestionably now opting out of that contract because now that salary is like the most team friendly salary of any non-rookie contract in the league.
Yep.
He is unquestionably becoming a free agent in 2025. And you have to think, not it's a really good thing to have an All NBA player, but you have to think, if he just plays at this level again, or continues to improve because now he's still improving every single year of his career, we're unquestionably going to have to max him in free agency. And Brunson may want to give back a little money in order to get the security of an extension now. So, hey, I'll take $4 million less than the max if you sign me to an extension now. And Knicks might be like, great, because that's often how those kinds of extensions work. I'll take a little bit less than the max, and I'll take the security, and you guys don't have to pay as much money for me, and the contract's more team friendly, and you get a little extra cap room, and I get to make a whole crap ton of money. And I think we're going to start seeing stuff like that way more in the NBA now than we ever have. We already do see those kinds of extensions, and I think we're going to start seeing it more and more, with the reason being it's just these guys are making fake salaries. Like this, it gets to a point where it's like I understand, like, LeBron wants to own an NBA team and LeBron wants to be a business mogul and that kind of stuff. Like, I'm not talking about that. That makes sense why he wants to maximize his earnings to that level. And I'm not saying it doesn't make sense for anyone to want to maximize their earnings as much as they want.
No, but I am saying security is a real thing.
Right. But there are also going to be people who are like, I can make either $300 million over 5 years, or I can make $290 million over 5 years. Like, I genuinely don't see the difference. Like, what the hell can I do for $300 million that I can't do for $290 million? I'm just going to do the thing that makes me happier. I genuinely think when the mid-level exception becomes like $16 million a year, we're going to start to see some stars who could still get major money be like, do the David West thing and be like, nah, I'll take the mid-level and I'll live in the exact city that I've always wanted to live in and have a chance to be on a great team that I've always wanted to play for. And screw this max thing. I'm making $16 million a year. Like, my great-grandchildren are set with the mid-level exception. Like, I really think we're going to start to see that kind of stuff happen. So, especially stars that have earned a lot over their careers, which Jalen Brunson has not yet, because look, $100 million is $100 million. It's a lot of money, but I actually think I'm actually going to go a few extra leaps. I'm going to say, I don't think the Knicks, when they signed Jalen Brunson, thought that he was going to be this good, because they obviously signed him on the declining contract. The last 2 years of contract, one of which, as you just said, is player options for a hair under $25 million. The max they could extend them for is 35, because if you're, correct me if I'm wrong, if you're going to extend off of a player option, the player has to opt in to the option, right? Yeah, so 140% of that contract starts at $35 million. If he goes into free agency, that contract would start at 44. That's the only reason I would. That's a big difference, though. It's a big difference. Maybe you're right. I don't know. Maybe I just said all this crap and I'm totally but I don't think wrong. But if you're Jalen Brunson and if it starts at 35, you still could do the max 8% raises. You get one less year because, again, it's the player option you're opting into. But it's still, I don't know what that tops out at, 150. Maybe you get a player option on that contract, so you dip into free agency one last time before you get too old. Or maybe he just really likes being in New York. I don't know. Well, I'll tell you something that I think could be analogous to this. I'm going to look. So Jalen Brunson has been in the league for 5 seasons, right? This will be his 6th season. This was his 5th season. This will be his 6th. Yeah. This will be his 6th season. So we're talking about this happening after his 7th season, right? Yes, correct. The conversation happening after his 7th season. So something that I could see is he picks up the player option and he does a 2-year extension, because that will get him then to 10. That will get him then he can hit free agency in 10 years, and then he's eligible for the 35% max. And at that point, he may very well be able to get the 35%. Like if I'm him, $350 million by that point. Exactly. And all of a sudden, $9 million a year isn't as much. Bradley Beal did something very similar to that, where Bradley Beal could have been a free agent. And it worked out quite well for Brad, where Brad signed an extension and it was just 1 year. And I believe, and this was under stricter extension rules, under the former CBA, it just switched over. You could only extend for up to 120%. The starting number had to be no higher than 120% of the previous year's salary. Now it's 140. No higher than 140% of the previous year's salary. So what he was making was actually quite less than his max, but he figured I'll extend, I'll take the security. It's only a 1-year haircut that I'm doing. And then I'm going to hit free agency after my 10th season. And that, because when you're 6 seasons or fewer, your max is 25% of the cap. 7 to 9 year veterans, your max is 30% of the cap. And 10 years,
10 or more, it's 35. Yeah. Unless you're Supermax eligible, in which case, but Jalen Brunson.
Exactly, which is a thing that we have to mention. Well, he could be.
Yeah, but he's not with the team that drafted him, so I thought that doesn't apply anymore.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah. You're right.
I always forget that too. So
God, so much to learn. You're right.
There's a lot.
He's not. So Jalen Brunson might just say it's a haircut for a couple of years. I'm going to resign here anyway. This is where I want to be. I want to keep playing for Tibbs. I want to keep playing for my dad. Like it's not just that his father was with the Knicks that he came here. It's not just that he's known Leon Rose since he was a kid. Like he actively wanted to play for Tibbs too. Like he really, that was a thing. Like he really wanted to play for Tibbs. So like he might just be, and he seems, I can't speak for him on this because it's not like anyone's going to come out and be like, I hate it here, except for apparently Evan Fournier.
We'll get to him.
But he does seem like he enjoys being the man on this team. And I'm just saying it's not necessarily bad business if it makes you happy. You give the team a little bit of a discount for a couple of years, and then you get your massive payday once you're a 10-year vet.
So that's even more to the point that I'm trying to make, which is that unlike a team like Minnesota that is a year away from like they got to do something, the Knicks have time. So they have the luxury to, as you're saying, wait for the star that they want. And then if we get to next summer and the Sixers, this season miraculously pulled it together and won an NBA championship, and Giannis extends for another however many years, and the Mavs have made it to the NBA Finals, and Luka decides to extend for as much as he could extend, and like all of the the names that we like to fantasize about are like off the board. Then if you're the Knicks, you can go back and you can have a meeting with yourselves and you can say, you know what? Let's actually go back and look again at insert your imperfect star here. And there's no harm, no foul. And this is the main point of this, which is that they bought them. And I'm not the first person to make this point, to be very clear. I think you've made it. I know Begley's made it. They bought themselves time with the season that they just had. It's not saying playing with house money, but like they can go into the season as they are, and it's fine. There's no pressure.
They're a good team.
There's pressure, but like there's not a pressure to make a move right now. Is the point?
There's pressure to be good.
Yes, there's pressure to be good.
I don't think that ownership will be pleased if they come out and they win 42 games this year.
I would agree with that.
I don't think things will go down well for them if they come out and they win 42 games and they're the 8th seed and they lose in the play-in tournament. Like that's not going well.
No.
But I think if they come out and they win 47 and they get the 5th seed and win a playoff series and lose in the second round, and it's a replication of last year, and the team is fun, well coached, plays hard, is praised for doing all the right things the same way that this past year was. You see development with the young guys. You see Jalen get a little better. Like you have all those assets. You have the ability to now make the move. Things are falling apart in place X where superstar X really wants to come to the Knicks. I think that's fine. That's okay. Like it's fine. Even if they do all that and they lose in the first round, a really competitive series to a really good team,
Shit
it's
happens.
like, exactly. Like the East is good, like you look at the Spurs dynasty, like when the West was awesome and you see, and you're like, fuck, the Spurs got swept some years. The Spurs lost in the first round some years, like.
Didn't they get upset by the Grizzlies and like they were the 1 seed and the Grizzlies were the 8 seed? Am I making that up?
Exactly. Yeah, no, you're not. They lost as a 1 to an 8 seed.
Well, but then we have to hold on. We have to say the obvious thing. And this is why Peter Holt was always praised as an owner, because he understood like sometimes shit goes your way, sometimes it doesn't. And I'm going to keep the hands off. Now, he had evidence as to like, if I keep my hands off, eventually I'm probably going to win a championship because my team has won several already. But like, the Knicks may not have that same luxury here, as you just implied before.
That is a fantastic point and is totally true. I'm more just speaking to the overall concept of development doesn't have to be like, okay, they made it to the second round, so now they got to
1,000%. And look,
they're a good team. And look, I've thought it was interesting. There are so many questions I would love to ask Leon Rose or Worldwide West or Brock Aller or
wait, were you sick when they did the postseason presser?
Yeah, there's so many, and one of them, it's not super high on the list because I have others that are so much higher because I have now years worth of questions. But if there were like regular availabilities and I were able to ask one of the, and I was able to ask the stuff I wanted to ask a year and a half ago, and I just had stuff about this summer to ask. One of the things I would ask was the way that you handled this summer a direct reaction to the way that you handled 2 summers ago? Because what happened 2 summers ago is they won with defense and grit. This was the 2021 season
that we hear too.
Exactly. And they won with grit and they won with defense and they won because they played crazy hard. Right. And they won because, Reggie Bullock had such a good year and Julius had this breakout season and RJ hit his threes and,
don't forget Alec Burks.
And Alec Burks is good.
Alec Burks is a damn good basketball player. You know who'd make the Knicks a little bit better?
I was just going to say, he also had when no one was watching because it was the Pistons, but
I know.
There was concern because he came into the year with that foot injury about like what's going to happen, but he had a really great year. He's had a great transformation too, because he was kind of this scoring guard and did not have a great jump shot. And now he's this knockdown 3-point shooter, good work ethic, really beloved teammate.
Pistons
too.
Doing because they have their 2 best players. You could argue their 2 best players are Alec Burks and Bojan Bogdanovic, who are on the older side. And like, they're good. If they're there, they're going to get time. They're going to get shots. They're going to get opportunities. Like, why are the Pistons trading one of the? I don't.
Here's what I don't understand about what the Pistons are doing. For the second straight year, the Pistons entered the offseason with cap space. And for the second straight year, they decided that they were going to use their cap space to take in bad contracts and get picks for them. I think that's a great strategy for teams who are not good to do. I think it's a fantastic strategy. But you can't only do it for second rounders. No. Like they took in last summer, they took in Nerlens Noel and Alec Burks for just a second round pick. Everyone around the league was telling me, oh, it's going to cost them a first to get off of Noel. It's going to have to cost them a first to get Burks. Totally fair contract, but it's going to have to cost them
in the context of everybody in the league knowing what the Knicks were after and why
they were desperate to get off of that money. And all the Knicks had to give up was inconsequential second round pick. Yeah. Meanwhile, now this summer, Detroit is
similarly desperate.
But not even that. Detroit is potentially preparing an offer sheet for Cam Johnson. Brooklyn wants to keep Cam Johnson.
Yes.
But in order to keep Cam Johnson and be able to pay him so they don't soar into the luxury tax, they have to get off of Joe Harris's money.
Which would make it so fascinating.
They probably would have found another way to get off of Joe Harris's money and still be able to keep Cam Johnson or match a Cam Johnson offer sheet from Detroit. But instead of just going after the Cam Johnson offer sheet and putting Brooklyn in the position that Brooklyn has actually put so many other teams in with Tyler Johnson and Allen Crabbe and Otto Porter, instead of doing that, Brooklyn says, oh, you know what? Why don't you just salary them to us and you can re-sign the guy that we want? And if you're getting a first out of that, awesome. Yeah. But like, why are you doing it for a second? Like, I don't get it.
It was confusing.
That's the part that I don't really understand. And I like Isaiah Stewart. Isaiah Stewart's a good player. But there is a chance that if he comes out and struggles this year, he's their 4th string center, and they just gave him 4 for $64.
Honestly, that contract might. Young player, I get it. Upside, he's dabbling with the 3-point shot. I get all that stuff. Energy guy, culture guy, whatever, all the stuff. It's a lot, as you said on the live stream of Free Agent Day. That's a lot of Isaiah Stewart.
It's a lot, and you know what? It's you don't have to critique the Isaiah Stewart contract. It's just that the Isaiah Stewart extension came in at 4 for $64 means there has to be a critique of something. Because if you knew you were willing to pay Isaiah Stewart that much money, which you should have because he's been in your system for a long time, then why are you doing the Wiseman trade? Like why is that the guy who you're trying to go get? Like, why are you doing the Bagley contract and the Bagley trade the year before? Why are you going out of your way to try to get Duren, who, by the way, I think was a good pick and is probably going to be a really good player. He showed a ton. He showed a ton this year. Like, he was a really good rookie. He was good, but they have like 4 guys who are best at center. And it's just weird. At some point, and they're
going to be bad again, by the way.
Yeah. At some point they have to try to win.
We'll see. A lot of Pistons. Of all the protected picks the Knicks have, I think the one that I would bank on, A, converting, and B, being the best pick when it converts. I think I would still bank on the Pistons because I think push will just come to shove and eventually it'll convert as 9 or 10 or 11, or I forget where the protections go up to, but something hefty. Anyway, we've gone far afoul. My God, how did we even get to this point? Okay, I'm going to try to bring us back here. The Knicks are good. They're going to be good. And James Dolan, even as
John,
what?
I was in the middle of a point.
Continue the point if you remember.
And I totally got derailed with my Detroit spiel. So no, I really wonder. I don't know the answer to this. I really wonder. The Knicks won in the We Here season. They won with grit, and all of that. Yes, and the offense struggled so much during the Hawks series, and Julius struggled so much during the Hawks series that they were like, we need more ball handling, more creation to be able to take the offensive load off of Randall. Totally intuitive, makes sense. But in order to go get the offensive creation and the ball handling and all of that, when they signed Fournier and Kemba Walker, what they did was they fundamentally changed the identity of the team by putting the 2 of those guys at the top of their defense for very obvious reasons. And it didn't work. And that team crapped the bed. Not just because of that. I mean, there were many reasons why. We don't know. But it's clear that neither signing worked at all. And I wonder if they looked at that and they were like, okay, instead of trying to fix our holes by getting guys who deviate from our identity, and this is something that they've really been revving up to with the Josh Hart trade and the Grimes pick and all that, let's go get someone who okay, we struggled with shooting and maybe we could use an extra ball handler. So let's go get the guy who does that while still fitting the exact identity that we need. Hard-nosed player, plays really hard on defense, is going to work his ass off, will probably respond really well to Tibbs. Like the same sort of personality and mentality that Josh Hart is. He'll fit in with those guys well from a cultural standpoint, and he'll fit in well with those guys from identity standpoint. And so I just wonder if they were like, okay, we learned something here, and so we're gonna shake it up and go about this differently.
Which is what you want from your front office. And I think because they did not try to upset the apple cart so much like 2 years ago, they will be good. And even if they, let's say, are the 6th seed and they lose a 7-game series in the first round to some team that is, just more talented than them and plays well, I think even James Dolan would be smart enough. I famous last words. I hope James Dolan would be smart enough to sit there and recognize, okay, shit happens. The Warriors, before they won 4 championships in however many years, they got to the second round, and then the year after that, they lost in the first round, and then they won whatever it was, 60, 69 games. Not saying the Knicks are the Warriors, but I've used that comp before just to show it's not linear. You mentioned the Spurs losing in the first round before, so shit happens. One more thing on Embiid very quickly, and I get the concern about him playoff performance, and Benji has voiced some concerns, I think accurate ones, about Like, can you really run the offense through a post player that isn't the sort of passing savant that Jokic is? I think that's all valid stuff. For me, it's a perfect fit because, like, correct me if I'm wrong, because you're a historian of the game. You could have the best center in basketball, whether it was Shaq, whether it was, Duncan once upon a time. I mean, Ewing was very good back in his day. Like, when it comes to the fourth quarter is still typically ball handler time, right? Like, and let Embiid be your horse for 3 quarters or 3+ quarters. And then guess what? The Knicks have, I'll say it right now, I think Brunson's certainly one of the 10 best guys in the league in terms of, like, who do you want with the ball in their hands, fourth quarter, crunch time. I mean, the numbers certainly said so this year in crunch time for Brunson. So I think it's a great marriage from that perspective.
If you're looking for the perfect fit, it doesn't exist.
I don't know if it does either.
Like, I think
Benji made a case for Doncic the other day, but
Benji knows basketball better than I do.
Both of us, yes. People who's better basketball better than both of us combined, probably.
Yes,
but yeah.
But I think sometimes we overanalyze this stuff.
Maybe, yeah.
He's the MVP.
Yes,
he's a center. Your best player is a point guard. Look, we can nitpick the hell out of it. Guess what? Jalen Brunson's not. He's not a great pick and roll guard. He doesn't have one thing that I would love to see him improve on is passing to rollers in the pick and roll.
Yeah,
he is not great. Yeah, and it's because he's not good at finding those angles. He very rarely throws lobs. How often does he throw a lob to Mitch? Very rarely.
I wish that stat was easier to. I don't know where to find. I'll just be transparent. I don't know where to find that stat. Lobs.
You would probably have to watch. You would probably have to watch every single Mitch or Brunson to Mitch assist and just count them.
Off the top of my head, it would surprise me if it was in the double digits.
But you look at Brunson, and it's a size thing, like you look at Brunson and he gets coming downhill. He also likes to stop when he's coming downhill. He doesn't like go all the way there. Like he's not John Morant, He likes to stop and then be like
slight difference in athleticism there.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I'm over people saying that Jalen Brunson's not athletic.
No, okay.
I'm over it. Jalen Brunson is really
athletic. In certain ways, he's extraordinarily athletic, but
he just isn't a jumper. Yeah. He's just not a high jumper, but he's extremely athletic. Like he is so quick. His ability, like being able to rev up. Like Ricky Henderson is not the fastest player in the history of baseball. I
love that we got a Ricky Henderson cop in here.
Ricky Henderson's first step is the fastest first step. Ricky Henderson went 0 to 60 so quick. Brunson goes 0 to 60 so quick. And there might be some cars out there that go 100 miles an hour, but it takes them a little bit longer to go from there.
The burst is elite. Yeah.
The burst is amazing. And the burst with just like a single step without even moving his pivot foot is unbelievable. His balance is amazing. His coordination is amazing. I have no idea if Jalen Brunson ever played baseball. I bet he'd be really good at baseball. Some basketball players who are horrific. Go watch John Wall's or Paul Pierce's first pitch that they've thrown at games. It looks awful. I bet you like Jalen Brunson be really good at that because he's so coordinated.
I bet you'd be really good at anything golf. You tried. Because
he's like really good at golf, probably. Like any of the coordination sports, he'd probably be great at. Yeah, maybe.
Compact swing.
Yeah, soccer. His footwork's unbelievable. But like the thing with Brunson is that kind of stuff I think is a size thing where it's hard for him to throw the lob over a larger defender who's on him or something like that. You even see it when he gets trapped. You notice when he gets trapped, he basically never hits the roller. That's part of why it's so easy to trap him. If I were him this summer, one of the things I'd be working on is passing to the roller after traps, because the Knicks, what they have to do is when Brunson gets trapped is they run a pick and roll. Let's say he runs it runs a pick and roll with Randall, and Randall rolls, and Randall's defender comes up and traps Brunson. Now there are 2 guys on Brunson 30 feet from the hoop. What the Knicks do is they have somebody else, let's say it's RJ, come up from the other side, from the wing to the top of the key, and then Brunson outlets to RJ. And that's how they try to get that 4-on-3 that way. If you can just get it to Randall, You've got more momentum. He's closer to the rim, and it takes faster. Like you can operate quicker, which means you have even more of an advantage. That's like, the Curry to Draymond Green, very famous play. I think that's something he has to work on. And I do think it's a size thing. I also know that it is certainly not impossible for a small point guard to do it, because we've seen Chris Paul become one of the best lob scorers in the entire league. We've seen Isaiah Thomas be amazing at that kind of stuff. Both Isaiah Thomas.
I was about to say both Isaiah Thomases.
Be great at that kind of stuff. So he can do it. And I know that's a really, really high standard, but that's what Jalen Brunson is now. We hold him to that standard, that's just the level of player that. And
also we've seen evidence of him like putting him. He's like, I'm going to be better at this, and then coming in and actually doing it like he did with threes off the dribble this year.
Right. So we can nitpick any star. Oh, okay. So Brunson is not going to be the perfect pick and roll partner for Embiid. Okay. Doncic is perfect with Brunson. We've seen them both before. They're amazing together. The offense is unbelievable when they're together. And guess what? You're going to poke them apart on defense. Now you've got two subpar defenders on the court in every single important moment that you have. You can go get Giannis. He's a 2-time MVP, and you can argue he's the best player in the league, but Giannis can't shoot. Oh no, you got to build a specific team around Giannis.
Yep.
Jokic has won 28 MVPs. He has averaged a triple-double for 472 consecutive seasons. I know he's never actually averaged one. He dominates in the playoffs every single year. He had one of the most incredible individual runs to the finals, considering the context and the narrative coming into it in the history of the game. Like, I genuinely think that his playoff run this year will go down as like Hakeem in 95. Well, David Robinson beat out Hakeem for MVP, and then he played in the West Finals, and they announced it right before the West Finals that David Robinson won. And then Hakeem just eviscerated him and then won the finals again. Like, I think it is going to go down with that sort of legacy. It is an epic finals run. And still people are going to be like, oh no, you could put Jalen Brunson and Jokic in pick and rolls. What happens? Now, all of a sudden, you need like a wing who can protect the rim, because you're going to have to bring up Jokic high on the pick and rolls, and then that roller is going to be able to get there. You need a really great weak side defender. Aren't many guys like that. Who are you going to have? It's like, we can nitpick all of them. Nitpick all of them. Sometimes you just kind of got to be, this is a great player who doesn't clash. Like, Lillard's an amazing player, but he clashes.
Yeah, it's a direct clash. Yeah.
Embiid doesn't clash.
No.
Giannis wouldn't clash. Like these great players, LeBron wouldn't clash with him, No. Like, I'm not naming these guys as potential Knicks guys. I'm just naming the best.
No, but you're making the point that there are enough, which is why, like, if it doesn't end up being Embiid, there are enough guys out there that their situations are, at this point, let's say, worth paying attention to, right? Like, they're not Jokic. Like, Jokic is going to retire on the Nuggets. We know that. Just like Curry did, just like Dirk did. Like, that's Jokic's path. Every other major big-time player in the league, you could look at and be like, okay, let me at least see what's going on there. Let me, like, not take my eye off of them. So, yeah, and most of these guys, like, can fit with Jalen Brunson, even if it's not perfect. I love that we have talked for 66 minutes and change, and we have not yet hit one of the things that was on our itinerary. I have a date with my daughter to go see Mission Impossible in 28 minutes. So we're gonna speak.
So let's do it.
A couple quick things.
Well, I just want to point out also, this is a great example of how the podcast without me and without Andrew and just with Berman would be totally fine. Andrew came up with a whole outline. He worked hard. I came on. I didn't put my real name in as my super on the screen.
And then
we talked about exactly. We talked about literally nothing that Andrew wanted us to talk about.
A lot of good Pistons talk, though, which I'm sure Andrew's thrilled about. Okay. We essentially did talk about.
Why do we talk about the Pistons for so much?
Because okay, here's why. So GMAC, Andrew just puts in the chat, Pistons get more love than Evan Fournier. You know why? Talking about the Pistons situation is more interesting to me than talking about Evan Fournier right now. I'll give you a quick softball. Just like you've covered Fournier all year, you have an immense amount of respect for his professionalism, for how good of an interview he is. He obviously is not thrilled right now with his situation. Let me ask it this way. I, as a fan who am concerned about things, as I've shared with you many times, about, locker room harmoniousness, that's probably not a word, culture, blah, 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 bullshit. I'm not worried about this Fournier thing. I read the story. I'm like, okay, I get it. It's fine. Let's move on. If you were me, would you be more worried, or would you have something similar to the attitude that I have now?
Have you seen me tweet about it or write about it?
No.
If I was concerned, I would have tweeted or wrote about it. For those who don't know, Fournier made some comments very bluntly stating discontent with not playing this year. I was somewhat surprised at first. I was surprised at first that he came out and said that so bluntly. And then I started to think about it. I was like, actually, I'm not. Fournier's incapable of not being honest. I mean, if you remember after the season was over and they lost, he was just like, yeah, of course I'm getting traded. Like, you expect me to be back? The reason I respected the way that Fournier went about his business this year, and the reason why I think his teammates and his coaches respected how he went around his business this year is not because he got benched and was just like, oh, okay, I'm a bench player now. Let's go team. And just decided to be like, a cheerleader. That's not why it was respectable. It was respectable because he's really competitive.
Yeah.
He is a really competitive guy. He's a really prideful guy. He's still in his prime. He was not happy at all about being benched. And in spite of the fact that he wasn't happy at all about being benched, he was still like, and at one point he actually literally said this on the record in a quote. He said, "What am I supposed to do? Just show up and bitch to everybody? Like, who wants that?" Yeah. He was totally upset about being benched. But the fact that he was, even while being upset, he was able to have perspective of, no, it doesn't mean that I'm going to treat people poorly. It doesn't mean I'm going to be a bad teammate. It doesn't mean I'm not going to help the young guys. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to work hard. You talk to the people there, and he would go really hard in practice. You show up really early for a game, and you see him out on his pregame routine. He's going like really hard in his pregame routine. Like, he's not milking it, He's going really, really, really hard in his pregame routine. He's treating it like that is his game. I'm talking about after he's out of the rotation. Like, that's his game, that pregame routine, And so I think the respectable thing with Fournier is that he felt this way and was still able to be like, I'm pissed and I don't like it and I'm not happy. And I think it's safe to say he wouldn't mind being on another team that actually gave him playing time.
And I don't blame him for that.
And I don't think he wants to do it again. I think also, like, it's a lot easier for a guy to stomach it when they're like, okay, it's just for this year, and then I can go elsewhere.
Make it the
and
next 5 months.
I think that's also something that he probably told himself. I know that's something Derrick Rose told himself too. Like, Derrick Rose wanted to play.
I'm sure he did.
Derrick Rose was a model citizen, and the guys in that locker room respect the hell out of Derrick Rose. And the young guys talk about how he works with them all the time and was such a great mentor. And they all talk about how easy and low maintenance he was after he got benched, especially considering the dude's a former MVP. But part of the reason that the Knicks didn't pick up the team option, I mean, look, part of it is that it would have sent him into the luxury tax, and that's very expensive. But it could have been a good use for like a star trade. And part of the reason was like, I don't know, various people told me after that they thought it was that like it was a favor to Rose.
Oh, really?
That Rose doesn't care about the money. He's made so much money in his career. Kind of similar concept to what I was talking about before.
Yeah. Sure.
And he's also like so zen all the time. Like, he doesn't care about that stuff. Yeah, exactly. He just wants to play. And he said it. He said he wants to Tom Brady it, right? He wants to play into his 40s. And he knows if he goes another season where he's just on the bench all the time and then he becomes a free agent again, he might not get signed. And if he does get signed, it might be under the assumption that he's just not going to play. Dude, so he wanted to go somewhere he can play.
Would you be shocked if he's starting game one for Memphis? So they just keep the bench as obviously Jones is one of the best backup point guard.
Jones is in Washington now.
Oh my God, I forgot that. That's a bad job by me.
Yeah, smart. I mean, smart.
But like they obviously traded for Smart so he could start alongside Ja Morant. So just keep everything as is, you know?
Yeah. Yep. No, I wouldn't be shocked. I'm also not 100% convinced that he can't play anymore.
No, like either. I think it was a fit thing. I think the team at the time needed to make an adjustment that was away from some of the thing. And, and he was a little rusty, but whatever.
Yeah. I mean, look, I could see a world where like he basically just didn't play basketball for 10 months. I could see a world where that refreshes his body.
Sure.
And he comes out and he's able to give you 20 good minutes a game. Like I'm not talking about like unbelievable Derrick Rose, but just like the Derrick Rose that the Knicks had, not this past season, but the season before, where he only played 26 games before he got hurt, but he was so good. He was so good for those first 26 games. I could see that happening. But with Fournier, he's very honest. Everybody knows he's very honest. He's kind of incapable of not saying what's on his mind. I know he was frustrated. I also know that Tibbs generally doesn't really tend to care about this kind of stuff when it's said. If he were to show up, my guess, and I have not spoken to him since he said this stuff, but my guess is if he were to show up, he would still be a pro. Like he's not, he just doesn't strike me as the dude who's going to be a problem. He's like a really, really respected, well-liked teammate. So I think he was just venting frustration and I understand it. I understand how it happened and why it was said.
My daughter has just come to retrieve me and let me know that we are officially now late. Very, very quick. I'm going to hold you to like 30 seconds or less on each of these.
Very quick.
Do you think the Knicks will miss Obi Toppin?
No, I don't think NBA teams miss players who are role players for the most part.
I concur. Number two, do you think the Knicks, putting aside the possibility of some very, very fringy move, do you think they're done before the offseason's over?
Probably, because it's so late. It's so rare that we see a trade at this point. So I'd say they're more likely than not done.
Okay. And
although we don't know about that Dwayne Washington Jr. qualifying offer.
Last one, off topic. Do you think Dame ends up in Miami before the season starts?
Oh, let's go bold. No. Let's say starts the year in Portland.
Shit. That'd be wild. Fred Katz, you're amazing. I mean, we say it, I say it, but I cannot emphasize enough. Well, here's my daughter.
Hello.
In case anybody was wondering whether she was actually chiding me to get done. I could sit here and I could talk to you about basketball or really anything for hours upon hours upon hours. We could do a Pistons podcast. Seriously. And I would.
We just did.
We just did.
We just did.
We didn't even mention the unsettling photos of Cade Cunningham and rocking his new his new look. It's not even new. That picture is like a month old, but whatever.
But that wasn't real.
It wasn't real?
The Cade Cunningham gaining weight. The Cade Cunningham gaining weight thing?
Oh no, I just saw a picture of him. He looked like kind of
Go to the movies.
Go to the movies. John, be a dad. Be a dad.
All right.
This was trending toward another Pistons part 2 of the Pistons podcast.
Come next time for part 2 of the Pistons pod. Fred Katz, you can follow him.
You can follow me. You can follow me at Andrew J. Claudio _ on Twitter. And you can follow my work at Knicks Film School. I produce all the pods. And every once in a while I'll jump on and I come up with outlines that end up being totally useless for for podcasts and just totally pointless. And all my stuff there.
Go read Fred Katz at The Athletic. He's amazing. I say it every time. It is a gift that he comes on here and he bullshits with us for as long as he does. Andrew Claudio, the real Andrew Claudio, thank you for your work on this episode. Anything we forgot?
Nope. Go to the movies.
We literally forgot everything, but go to the movies.
Well,
we literally didn't do any of the podcasts. We literally forgot everything.
Yes.
So go to the movies.
Bye, everybody. Peace out.